So I actually want to start with a little context to talk about how important this issue that we're talking about today is, especially here in Detroit. And I'll just start with a number. I've seen statistics that say that 1 in every 3 African-American males in our city has been incarcerated at some point. So if you think about that, that means that 1/3 of the male population, the predominant male population of the city, has had an experience with the criminal justice system, but it means that their families, their neighbors, and their communities have also had some of that experience and are affected with it. So I always say that this is not an issue in a community in Detroit. This is an issue for Detroiters, for all of us. We all have some incidents with the prevalence of incarceration of African Americans in this country and in this city. So with that being the case, the work that you two are doing, which is to provide spiritual guidance and support and mentoring to not only those who are incarcerated, but to their families as well, is just so critically important. So first of all, thank you to both of you for what you're doing. But let's start with how important the work of the ministry is for those who are in jail and in prison. I'm not sure that everybody necessarily understands that the kind of support that you're giving is so crucial. Bishop Chui, I'll start with you.
So as you said, Stephen, the impact is much broader than people think. If Michigan has 14% African American, but we make up 53% of prison population, that's phenomenal. That's a lot of people who are being affected, and then you add in their children, their family, and all that. So it's a lot of impact and consequences as a result of that. So the work is really important. It's not just the work that goes on inside of correctional facilities, but what we do in the community to bridge the gap that families, and especially children, are impacted by the absence of a parent. You have over, 50,000 children who have an incarcerated father, and maybe another 3,000 children who have an incarcerated mother. And again, of those statistics for the state of Michigan, more than 55% of them are African American. So it's a tremendous amount of work that must be done.
Can you talk, Bishop Chui, just a little about what it looks like inside prisons and jails, what a ministry is when you're dealing with bars and guards and all kinds of restrictions?
That's a good question. So when I first started the ministry in Detroit, I began prison ministry in Houston, Texas, at our church in Houston. And when I came to Detroit in 2000, then I started doing prison ministry here in the city again. And I started at Ryan and Mound Correctional Facilities. And when I first went in, the first thing I asked myself, I wanted to see what all the other ministries were doing, because I didn't want to duplicate what was already being done. And so what I saw was Bible study worship. I said, okay, they got that covered. So I want to bring culture, I want to bring history, I want to bring spiritual awareness, I want to bring values. So I started to put together programs, design programs and events, classes around those themes, and trying to especially empower the inmates to understand that even though you're here behind these bars and walls, you still have an obligation and responsibility to your community. So how do we bridge those gaps? What work needs to be done? So we started thinking about projects that could happen in the community, even though they were incarcerated. So we put together several kinds of programs to address the needs, especially of the children of incarcerated parents.
Reverend Spruill, talk about H.O.P.E, how you founded it, and what the work is that you're doing.
Well, let me give a little background. Thank you for having me, number one. Uh, Hope came as part of Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church Ministries. We do the arm into the community that does the outreach into the community. One of them happens to be the prison ministry. I have 31 years of experience in jail and prison ministry. I started down at Wayne County. I went from Wayne County to Mound Prison, then from Mound out to Macomb, and had a chance to go to Angola to be part of that prison ministry there, and also at Fox Hills in the Bahamas. So I've been around prison ministry a long time, and so for the impact is on our community is very devastating to our community. When a person's gone as from the house, from their home, it makes it hard on the families. And so what we do is on the Tabernacle, I started in leadership of Dr. F.G. Sampson 31 years ago, and now I'm working with Pastor Mason Johnson. And so it's been great work working with the church. So our role is going into the prison, have our Bible studies, we have a worship service. But while I'm there, and this is where us give them hope, when I share with them what about hope. When you get out, these are the programs that are available to you. We have a bakery that you can learn baking skills. We teach you how to bake, and also they give them a source of income, okay? And so we, along with that, is we teach them about financial training as well. It's coming in March, they learn how to, about budgeting, because it's one thing to get a job. It's another thing to teach men how to manage his money. And so we always encourage people to get their jobs, but I said, get a job, but also encourage you guys to get a career. And so with the hope, what we try to do, we try to meet the physical, social, and emotional needs of the individual. We do the partnership with other entities. For instance, prime example would be the Center for the Works of Mercy. There you can receive your dental care, you got counseling there, you got food closet there. We have the all the social needs a person may need. So I'm giving them hope. You come home, contact me, call me, I want to help you. Also, we'll assign them a mentor. We do an intake on the individual. We do sit down, do an intake on them, find out just what their needs are. And then we map out a short-term goal and a long-term goal for them to try to achieve it. So that's what we do at Hope.
Yeah. So that coming home, the idea of somebody who has been incarcerated coming back to the community and trying to start their lives over, find a life that really was taken from them. That's it's a policy discussion that we have a lot, right? About making sure things are available, making sure there are opportunities. It seems to me, Reverend Spruill, that you are dealing with this not only at that level, but at a very personal level in terms of how that person reintegrates with their family, how that person becomes a member of the community again. Can you talk about how that work?
Yes, what we do is when it comes to Hope for intake, and you first get out, you first call me right away. You get released Friday. We'll come we'll meet at Hope Friday along with your family. You know, if you have some guys, families is no longer have passed while they're incarcerated, so it's hard on them. But we try to bring the family together along with the mentor. Okay, this is how we're going to work through these issues. So this person, they've been going for a while, so let them know, hey, things are not the same. You've been going 15 years, and in their minds, they still go back to 15 years ago, but things have changed. And so counseling with them along with the family, walking them through this process, it's going to be a process, and be patient with them and sharing the resource that we have to bridge that gap between the 15 years. It's hard. And this where the mentor come in to walk alongside the family and the returning citizens as well.
Yeah. Bishop Chui, I wonder if you can talk some about the family side of this, or some more about the family side of this, the loss that families feel when somebody goes away to jail or to prison, but then I guess that emotional, the emotional side of returning somebody and having somebody come back home. That part of the ministry has to look really different, I guess, from what you're doing inside the prison with people who are incarcerated.
Yeah, so both sides of the equation are very important. When you talk about impacts on families, I got a call to come to an elementary school to a third grade classroom because a third grader was getting picked on by her peers in the classroom because her father was incarcerated. So I went to the classroom, talked to the kids. I told them a story about a person who was incarcerated and that person's feelings about not being able to see their children. And then I asked the students, so how would you feel if you were in prison and you had a child that you couldn't see, you couldn't talk to, you couldn't hug, you couldn't guide and lead and be a part of their life? How would that make you feel? But I took it even further than that. I asked them to write down what you would say. So they all wrote letters to inmates and expressing their feelings about how they must feel not being able to be a part of their child's life. So I took those same letters to, I was teaching a creative writing class at Ryan and Mound. So I took those letters to the guys in my creative writing class and I asked them to write letters back to the children. And they did. And we had this exchange going on for weeks between the kids and the inmates, just to deal with those feelings and those issues and to address some of the emotional wounds. So both sides got to see this impact and how it affected the psyches of the kids and of the parents. But that's the kind of ministry, healing that needs to be addressed on both sides. And to address it, I had the inmates come up with ideas. So we had something called the Child of the Month Club that we did at Ryan and Mound. And every month we pick a charity to give resources to that support incarcerated parents, children of incarcerated parents. And all those kind of projects and community connections are important to embrace families who are dealing with incarceration and loss. But when somebody comes home, that has to be a whole process too. And we try to, in the Tree of Love Ministry, we try to work on that before they get home and try to create a smoother pathway for them to come home into, because we're connected to so many resources in the community because we've been doing this for almost 20 years now. And so we are able to plug people into resources, into employers that work with people who have felons on their record, and just try to connect them to the spiritual and emotional resources as well to get counseling and guidance, because it's not easy just coming out. You've been gone for 15, 20 years. Not only do you not know how the world is operating, but you don't have any support system. And until you get reconnected even to the people that you care about the most. So it's a tremendous amount of work, and it's never ending. People ask me, when do I do prison ministry? It's 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
So I want to give both of you a chance to talk about things we might do differently to make this a more manageable issue in our community. I mean, obviously, there are all kinds of criminal justice reforms that we need to enact. It would help if we could remove the systemic racism from the criminal justice system that sends African Americans away at much higher rates than other Americans. But as the people on the front lines ministering to those affected, I wonder if you have things that you would like to see be different. Bishop Chui, I'll start with you.
Well, I would like, there's so many. Well, I'll tell you, when Ryan and Mound closed, that was devastating.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That was devastating.
Because people are further away now.
Yes, not only to be disconnected from your family, but now you're miles and miles away. They have no way to come see you. They have no way to connect with you. And especially now during the pandemic, visitation is very limited. And a lot of visitation is done the way we're doing this meeting right now. So it really weighs on the psyche, those kind of issues that could be alleviated by political correctness. There are over 31 facilities in Michigan.
Yeah.
Ryan and Mound should have been the last two prisons to be closed. Mm-hmm. But those kind of issues I would like to see addressed from the state level. There's so much more we can do to support the families of the incarcerated at the state level. So it's policy changes, but I think it's also providing resources because the amount of money families spend when they have an incarcerated loved one, the phone calls, the H.O.P.E emails, the care packages, it's a tremendous amount of money that people have to pay to support their loved one. And something can be done about that.
Yeah. Reverend Spruill?
Yeah, what I would like to see, for instance, what we're doing now with Southwest Community Courts, people have infraction with the law, for instance, may need to suspend a driver license, make that called trafficking. Those are misdemeanors. And so sending them to H.O.P.E, again, we have the opportunity to do the community service. And there we encourage them, okay, do your community service, do what is directed by the courts, because that misdemeanor can turn to a felon, escalates, and then we get added to incarceration. And so I think the system, we look at what can we do instead of just locking people up? Can we allow them to do community service, hook up with the churches and communities, and allow them community service and match with a mentor and walk alongside them, help them correct the action then, rather than just say, well, we're just gonna send this person away for 1 or 2 years. That'd be one way to deter the incarceration if we catch them now. And also working with SOAR, nonprofit that offers reading to tutoring to students in school. I've been working with them, the church and the community, to help get that reading level up. Because we build prison according to 4th grade reading level. So that's important. It's like prevention. What can we do to prevent to get to that point of incarceration? And so let's rev up the schools, get them more involved, get more volunteers in. They had that reading level. So when they graduate, they go to school and get some type of skill and learn, rather than just dropping out. So if you drop out, you end up more likely being incarcerated. And then we got another. So I'm looking at on the back end, what can we do on the back end to prevent individuals being incarcerated? And I like to see more programs proactive rather than being reactive. We spend a lot of money on after they come home. Well, let's spend some money on prevention before they get there.